Let's take a look at next week. Brad, we've got the CPI numbers coming out on Tuesday next week. Tell me, what are some of the bull and bear scenarios?
Well, I mean, the reality is a lot of these the things that are measured in inflation are somewhat visible. Like, you can see what happened with oil prices, and you can see what happened. There are various, indicators of things like used car prices and rent. And so economists can get that dialed out in pretty closely. The thing that maybe is a little bit harder is kind of what's happening with wages. And that's really what I think. There's two things that the Fed's really worried about. Number one is that and companies, the CEOs are worried about, because it hits their profit margins if they have to pay their employees more. But they don't like this. The wages are rising about 5% per year. The Fed's inflation target is 2%. So they do not. I mean, it sounds bad. It's good for the workers, but it's bad for the Fed. So that's one thing, is they probably want to get that number down. But that's not in sight anytime soon, because we got a really strong labor market. Let's see, the
bull and bear scenarios in terms of price.
The bull and bear in terms of price, Bitcoin price. I know what I was going to say. The Fed is, God, I lost it again. But I'll go to your other question. I'll probably remember it. On the upside, Katie Talati Katie Stockton is looking for resistance at 23. So here we are at 21. We're not talking about resistance. So we're on the upside. On the downside, talking about 20. I remembered what I was going to say about the Fed. They're worried that people will start to see these inflation figures at 8% as the new norm. And they'll start to act accordingly. So you can change your behavior and pricing, and that can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's why they want to hustle to get the inflation down. Anyway, I don't know if that adds anything, but I finally remembered that.
Yeah. Well, but just looking through your notes, you said that Katie Stockton, based on a reading of the charts, we could see $23,000 Bitcoin, though the rally may not be sustainable too much beyond that. And on the downside, the most obvious point to look at would be $20,000, since price point has been such a battleground between bulls and bears over the past couple of weeks. And Christie, you're anticipating a hot trial coming up that everyone in the Bitcoin community is anticipating, and that's Craig Wright versus Hodlonaut.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but Monday, the trial starts. So what we're seeing is Craig Wright, the Australian computer scientist who has long claimed to be the pseudonymous creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, is facing off against Bitcoiner Hodlonaut. We do know his real name, but hey, everybody knows him as Hodlonaut, and it goes back to March of 2019 when Hodlonaut published a series of tweets on his relatively small account. He had under 10,000 followers at the time. And he wrote that Craig Wright's claims to be Satoshi were false and called him a fraud and a scammer. And of course, Craig Wright has taken exception to that and is now suing him. And what is exciting about this case, unlike all the other cases that Craig Wright has been involved in that we have followed over the past, is this actually is going to make him prove his point. Is he Satoshi? Can he prove it? We'll see. But next week will be very, very interesting to follow. Wow. And our own Cheyenne Ligon is going to be in Sweden covering the case.